person on The Tonight Show?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh. It's kind of random. It's going to be iconic.
If you say so. So, man, it's going to be tough for her to escape the bathroom unscathed.
Actually, it's going to be super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
Oh, really? Yeah, because right at that moment, they hear Dick arriving, so Jack leaves to go deal with that. Couldn't he just take a couple of seconds to kill his wife and then go? Impossible. No, so then Dick starts walking around the hotel, and Jack pops out and kills him. So he traveled all the way from Miami just to die immediately. He sure did, sir, and his shining power didn't see the axe coming. So then Wednesday starts running around the hotel seeing all kinds of spooky stuff.
Like what?
The elevator full of blood, for one. Oh, what is that about? I told you I'm not telling. She also sees some spooky skeletons.
Spooky.
She sees a guy in a bear costume with his bare butt out doing bedroom stuff to a guy in a tux.
What? Spooky.
What was that last thing? So then Jack is going to chase Danny through a frozen hedge maze, but it's super cold and he gets lost and freezes to death.
Whoops.
Whoopsie. So then Wendy and Danny ride off on the snowcat that Dick rode in on. Oh, so that was the purpose of his long trip, to provide a method of transportation and die immediately. That's right. Oh, wow, wow, wow.
Well, so what do you think?
Well, it sounds like a spooky time, and I don't know how to feel about that bear thing. So who are you thinking to play Jack Torrance? Well, I was thinking Jack Nicholson. He's got one of those naturally creepy smiles. Oh, that's a good idea. If you were born with a creepy smile like Jack Nicholson, you gotta use that in a horror movie. Oh, absolutely. Hi, this is Ryan George from The Thing You Just Watched. Please enjoy this slideshow from The Thing You Just Watched.
Hey guys, before this video absolutely convinces you to throw massive amounts of your free time away on a Ukrainian FPS, I just wanted to let you know I was able to strike a deal with the folks over at Good Old Games. Right now, the entire series is on a 70% discount.
Elena,
Now,
are
I'm
you
not
okay?
really sure how long that's going to last.
Yeah.
You might want to jump on it
For
soon.
whatever reason,
So
we're
if
still
you even
alive.
sort of consider taking a
cutting through the
dive into some of the
cemetery.
most immersive
The
gaming you can
cathedral.
find, you might as well do so at a severe discount. I'll have links down in the description for the sale, and well, what the hell are you waiting for? Go play some damn Stalker. And yes, that's an order. For as long as I can remember, I've always been attracted to the more immersive elements of video games. The little design choices that made me feel more like I was part of the game's world, and for a while I thought it didn't get any better than RE2, Final Fantasy VII, or Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, or Realm of Persia. I mean, how good it is. These were some of the best music I'd ever run across. We did should get us to Stalker, a series that always been incredibly close in my heart, a franchise that would forever change the way I look at video games. But more importantly, it was a gateway in which I experienced one of the richest and most fully realized fictional worlds ever created. So if it's cool with you guys, I would like very much to lead you through the anomaly-laden area surrounding Pripyat with the goal of uncovering just a portion of this unexplored landscape. And hey, if we end up coming across some rare artifacts, I'm sure none of you would say no to a lifetime of wealth and fame. So if you're keen on joining in on this little expedition, make sure to check your weapons and ready your head, because you never really know what to expect once you cross that threshold, so it may as well be home. And hey, speaking of which, it looks like we're here. Stalkers, welcome to the zone. Alright, listen, I know you're here for Stalker, but there is an obligatory history lesson that absolutely needs to be understood before we move forward. Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl is the narrative product of two pieces of media most of you have likely never even heard heard of before. And I think it's fitting we start with the catalyst for all of this. The excellent Inside Picnic, a sci-fi novel written by the Strugatsky brothers in the early 70s. The title being a reference to one scientist's description of a world-changing event in the book where aliens visit Earth. The visit appearing to this scientist to resemble a group getting together and driving to some remote area so they can enjoy life. All the signs they were there, they compared to tire tracks being left in the dirt, and the reality that the artifacts left behind basically equated to trash left after such a terrible excursion. The Roadside Picnic was an incredible look into a very grounded, realistic thriller, despite the sci-fi nature of the story. Most of the book is spent setting up little mysteries, like a phenomenon that some people near these alien landing sites experience, where they heard a noise so loud they couldn't describe it, and after hearing that noise, each of them immediately went from blind.
I guess there are worse things than
that will
chasing a
never
dog
really
through a
give an
cemetery.
explanation for making them all the more intriguing. I would wholeheartedly recommend checking this book out, as it is easily one of my favorite pieces of fiction, but we're not exactly finished here. 8 or so years after A Roadside Picnic came the film Stalker. Written by the same brothers responsible for its inspiration, Stalker is the tale of a guide with enough balls to enter the exclusion zone, an area cordoned off by the military because some sort of event has happened there, leading to spots where physics are altered and reality is bent into new forms. In the center of the zone sits a room that is rumored to grant wishes. This plot chronicles this stalker leading 2 people through the zone's hazards with the intention of getting them to this wish granter. Now, I will admit up front, this is a very long, really slow watch, but one that's absolutely acidic. Personally, I've always really enjoyed the Stalker films, just based on how much I love the narrative that is the exclusion zone. I was really surprised to find out that this Russian art house movie is held in really nice film bucks. So if you're just getting into these games and wondering where you can find more of the same, start with A Roadside Picnic. I know books aren't exactly the first thing a hardened gamer is going to reach for, but trust me, if you like this type of story, you'll love seeing where it all came from. As for the movie, while it's much more subtle than the book and has a heavier focus on philosophical conundrums, it's still very much worth a watch. I'm sure the cinephiles in the audience will get a kick out of it regardless, but fans of the Stalker games will undoubtedly recommend the chance to get a new perspective on the zone.
Got a job for you, my son.
Okay, so what does all this have to do with the game at hand? Well, Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl is the product of EcoPart's Roadside Picnic and Stalker the Film. It borrows nearly its entire backstory from the aforementioned film and book, but before you start screaming about intellectual property theft, the game's developers did add a very important element to this concoction, a real-life event so damn fitting, narratively appropriate, you think all immediately pick up that this was some kind of Nostradamus-like prediction.
One of the atomic reactors at the Chernobyl atomic power plant in the city of Kiev was damaged, and there is speculation in Moscow that people were injured and may have died.
Instead of dealing with strange alien visitors coming to the Shadow of Chernobyl
Baby,
is the titular Chernobyl nuclear power plant.
So I said, do you want me to go to the store around the corner?
And like I said before, the marriage between these two ideas is
It's not a problem that
perfect. If you need
avoid.
proof of that, not long after the meltdown, the people who would risk their lives
I asked
in the
you.
exclusion zone with the goal of bringing back valuable items were actually called stalkers. I think we've all
Yeah,
heard how
but
word imitation
for you to
life
ask
is
me
very rare
again,
to hear life
did I
imitating.
get Rebel?
Now, don't get me wrong. The story about aliens and Lucifer never actually.
Yeah, and I told you.
The main journey is but if I'm
But
being
that-
honest, explaining all that craziness with a good old-fashioned man-made nuclear disaster, well, that's just one more step towards being more grounded. And now that we have moved into the realm of the game itself, we actually have a little more history to cover. While Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl did eventually adopt the CNPP's meltdown into their mix of Stalker meets Roadside Picnic, the game actually started out as a futuristic affair called Oblivion Lost. Not a whole lot's known about this build other than what's been shown in leaks and trailers, but it seems to share the same obsession with giving the player a massive, detailed world to play in. After Oblivion Lost made the change over to Shadow of Chernobyl, it started to gain a bit of steam, and in 2001 it was announced with a slated release date of 2003. A date they would end up blowing past by a good 4 years, by the way. During development, the team at GSC Game World would give near-constant previews in the form of screenshots and promotional videos, even though the game was no good. finished state at the time.
It's
But
like
I remember watching some of these previews from way back in the day, specifically some kind of an interview on GameSpot.com that showed off the game's focus on ballistics and how you can shoot your soft materials like wood, but the path of your bullets would be altered by it slightly. By the way, if you've seen that interview, please leave a comment, because I remember it vividly, but I can't seem to find any videos of it, and I really need confirmation that I'm not losing my mind. After seeing a few low bit rate trailers, I was pretty damn interested, despite the fact that I was rocking a compact Rosario rebuild that could never be running. Long swaths of time would go by, and most of us would assume Stalker was just another piece of vaporware, but eventually THQ would take an interest in the project. And after even more missed release dates, we would finally get our hands on Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl. Alright, so I think we're just about current as far as prerequisites go. So maybe now's a good time to start talking about what kind of story this homunculus made up of other pieces of media has to tell. Oh, and by the way, I know a lot of you who are familiar with the game have already noticed but I did use a few mods in this playthrough, and yes, I will address that eventually. First things first, though, let's find out what the hell we're doing in the zone in the first place.
This one seems to be alive. What a lucky guy.
Shadow of Chernobyl starts off with a cutscene of a guy driving a truck full of, let's call it mixed cargo, and as if living in constant fear of the radioactive hellscape you find yourself in isn't worrying enough. You've also got to be on the lookout for rogue lightning bugs. After the accident, a stalker who's really good at his job attempts to establish the site and comes across our main character, who is surprisingly still breathing and granted a tattoo identifying him as a stalker, an acronym that stands for Scavenger, Trespasser, Adventure, Loner, Killer, Explorer, and Robber. He then brings our banged up body to a local trader named Sidorovich, and since he's the guy who nursed us back to health, sort of owns the favors.
This job's for me and Willie.
It's not exactly a one-way deal, though. He's also willing to help us with our amnesia, using the only clue we have, a task found on our PDA that has us hunting down a fellow stalker named Strela. The side goal Sidorovich has us looking into is finding a proper route to the center of the zone. Apparently, actually getting to the Chernobyl nuclear power plant isn't a walk in the park, and the very few that do seem to never be heard from again. So here at the start, we're given these two goals that are a little more intertwined than the first scenes. First and foremost, we need to ask around about this Strelak guy and see what he did to warrant a bounty, and also meet up with more than a few possible connections that might help us find a path into the zone's heart, which you might wonder about. I mean, these guys don't exactly look like the explorer for science and discovery city, right? Well, to answer that, we have a little bit of history to cover. In this world, the deadly meltdown that occurred at the CNDP went down just as it did IRL, but this time afterwards, scientists and other groups move in to study the effects of the meltdown on the environment, along with a few experiments that might need to be done in the sort of place where you can assure no prying eyes will see it. Sometime after this, a second and even more devastating accident occurs that you could describe as Chernobyl times 10. This second disaster floods the area surrounding the plant with massive amounts of radiation, causing some quote-unquote alterations to the natural environment and the people that were unlucky enough to be inside the exclusion zone when it all went down. And now the zone acts as some kind of elements of the landscape, gravity, physics, the people in it being altered by the effects of this accident. The humans and animals that used to inhabit the zone are now twisted creatures formed from the radiation and some other stuff into brand new species of dangerous threats. Most interesting to me, some areas have spots where physics stop working in a way we can even comprehend. These are referred to as anomalies.
Roger. Hello? I know someone's in there. Open up!
Typically only cover a small surface area that can do some amazing
Look, it's
things.
just us.
Some spots
Hurry up and let
are
us in.
exposed to land, no.
Hey,
Sections of the ground
get rid of the
is
car.
cranked up to 11, localized category hurricanes, and just wait to suck up the buses
got me
like
fucked
victim
up.
to some kind of unnatural vortex. And so we're going to run down these threats in the face. Right? It's been a huge role these things being so deadly, it's actually quite the opposite. Just with random matches of absolute chaos that are cyclically producing some extreme heat,
Get ready. Here comes company.
gravitational pressure, sometimes just fashion radiation. So being a small trinket that houses something natural. Some of these things can have positive effects, like ones that protect anyone holding it from other bodies, radiation, is the personal benefits, but instead the highlights the soul. As you can imagine, the scientific community is more twisted in rocks that can serve as potential energy sources with a survey basically weird product from the most fenced into the winter. If we're able to put it in set up so it's a magic stalkers sitting at the heart of the it's supposed to be process of trying to get to the center, so we acquired
That was someone in there with a little backbone.
and we have all kinds of stalkers and we have a few possessed and it's the most interesting parts of the entire specific shots of evidence that Starlock ran so that we find the same video the top did. So we're this for a second hand evidence of the Starlock results. Across the stalker named Fox who had dealings with Starlock. One of the A9 issue, he's only able to visit the direction of the guy.
Putting a lot on the line, trust me, here. I hope this info of yours is worth it.
That's what the direction is. Manipulation that leads us to some struggles. Process of the training documents that leads us to some secret places that send out information so strong, essentially melt your brain, leaving behind the soul itself.
Come on, get inside! Hurry!
So we follow up on some leads, which has us across the ledges of struggles to debates and finding the center. Using some contacts developed along the way, we find out there's a good chance of meeting up with one of the last living members of Strelok's entourage if we go back to his hideout underneath Agroprom.
Are you... Sorry, guys.
Strelok's still alive.
We're not rescue workers.
And sadly, I won't be able to talk about much more without majorly spoiling the plot here. So if you've never played this game and think you might want to, skip to the timestamp on screen, follow the link in the description, or skip past the chapter named Spoilers.
You want to tell me
Okay?
what's down there?
Alright, let's get to spoiling.
It's better if I show you.
So in the process of meeting up with Strelok's last companion, we sort of fall prey to one of his booby traps, causing us to lose consciousness. Once we wake up, it's the same companion helping us to